My plane touched down in Moscow in the heart of winter, January, when the city is at its coldest and darkest. As the wheels hit the snowy runway, I peered out the window, watching the landscape blur into a world of white. The airport itself seemed to be holding its breath, blanketed in snow, the runways lined with frost and the distant city lights twinkling through the haze. I felt a mix of excitement and apprehension, knowing I was about to step into a place where winter is not just a season, but a way of life. The moment I stepped outside, the air hit me like a wall of ice, sharp, bracing, and invigorating. Snowflakes drifted down in slow motion, settling on my coat and hat, muffling the sounds of the city. The world felt quieter, softer, as if the snow was absorbing every noise. Cars moved slowly along the streets, their headlights glowing in the swirling snow, and people hurried by, faces hidden behind scarves and hats, each step leaving a fresh imprint in the powdery white. I'd always dreamed of seeing Russia in its most iconic season, and now I was finally here. There's something almost mythical about Moscow in winter. The stories, the films, the literature, all painted as a place of both beauty and endurance. Standing there, suitcase in hand, I felt like I was stepping into a Russian novel, ready to write my own chapter in this storied city. The drive into the city was nothing short of magical. Streetlights cast golden halos onto the snow, illuminating the roads and sidewalks in a warm, gentle glow. Buildings, old and new, were dusted with fresh snow, their outlines softened and made almost dreamlike. People moved through the streets bundled in thick coats, furry hats, and woolen mittens, their laughter and conversation rising in little clouds of breath. The city felt alive, even in the depths of winter. My hotel was nestled near the city center, and from my window, I could see the famous onion domes of Moscow's cathedrals, their vibrant colors muted under a layer of snow. The skyline was a tapestry of history and modernity, with ancient spires rising beside glass towers, all united by the winter's touch. I stood at the window for a long time, just taking it all in, feeling both the weight and the wonder of being in such a legendary place. Moscow in winter is no joke. It's a deep, powerful cold that seeps into your bones and lingers no matter how many layers you wear. The wind whips through the streets, carrying with it the scent of snow and distant wood smoke. Every breath feels sharp and clean, and every step is a reminder of the city's resilience. Yet, there's a certain energy in the air, a sense of pride among the people who call this place home, who have learned to thrive in the face of such fierce weather. That first night, I ventured out only around the block, the snow crunching beneath my boots with every step. The streetlights cast long shadows on the snow, and my breath hung in the air like a small cloud. I watched as locals navigated the icy sidewalks with practiced ease, some stopping to chat, others lost in their own thoughts. The city felt both vast and intimate, as if every snowflake carried a story. The city itself was both imposing and beautiful, its immense buildings and centuries of living history softened by the gentle touch of snow. The architecture seemed to glow in the winter night, each structure telling its own tale of survival and splendor. Even the busiest streets felt peaceful, transformed by the snow into something almost otherworldly. I found myself slowing down, taking in the details, the ornate facades, the twinkling lights, the quiet strength of a city that has seen so much. Back in my hotel room, I gazed out at the snowy city, feeling small but determined. The vastness of Moscow was humbling, but it also filled me with a sense of possibility. I unpacked my winter clothes, layering up for the days ahead, and made a mental list of all the places I wanted to explore. The city lights sparkled in the distance, promising adventure and discovery. As I drifted off to sleep, I knew that my real journey was just beginning. Moscow in winter had welcomed me with open arms and icy winds, and I was ready to embrace everything this vast frozen land had to offer. The next morning, I discovered a new definition of cold, -20 Celsius or -4 Fahrenheit. It wasn't just a number on a thermometer, it was a force that hit me the moment I stepped outside. The air itself felt alive, biting at any exposed skin, making every breath a sharp reminder that I was far from home. I'd heard stories about Russian winters, but nothing could have prepared me for the reality of it. The cold was so intense it felt like thousands of tiny needles pricking my face. My nose hairs froze instantly, turning each inhale into a strange, icy sensation. Even my eyelashes collected frost, and I found myself constantly brushing snowflakes from my eyebrows and cheeks, just to keep my vision clear. The sun was out, shining brightly over the city, and for a moment I thought it might offer some relief. But the sunlight was deceiving. Its golden rays danced on the snow, making everything glitter. but there was no warmth at all. The cold seemed to swallow up any heat before it could reach me. What truly amazed me was how the city kept moving, unfazed by the weather. People hurried to work, their faces red from the wind but determined. Children bundled in layers played in the parks, their laughter echoing through the frosty air. Trams glided smoothly along snowy tracks, always on time, as if the cold was just another part of daily life. I watched locals glide effortlessly over icy sidewalks, their steps confident and sure. Meanwhile, I shuffled cautiously, trying not to slip, learning quickly that there's an art to moving in this kind of winter. Every step was a lesson in balance and adaptation, and I admired how everyone else seemed to do it so naturally. The air was so dry it scratched my throat with every breath. I soon realized why everyone wrapped scarves tightly around their faces. Breathing through the fabric helped warm the air just enough to make it bearable, and I quickly adopted this habit, grateful for the small comfort it provided. In this environment, every action required thought and intention. Even something as simple as walking became a careful process, testing each step, watching for hidden ice, and learning to read the snow's texture. It was a crash course in winter survival, and I felt both challenged and exhilarated by it. Yet despite the challenges, I couldn't help but be captivated by the city's beauty. The snow blanketed the classic Soviet buildings, softening their harsh lines and transforming them into something almost magical. The familiar gray concrete was now covered in a delicate layer of white, making the city look like a scene from a fairy tale. The birch trees, with their slender trunks and snow-laden branches, looked like they were dressed in lace. Their patterns stood out against the winter sky, creating a landscape that was both stark and beautiful, delicate yet resilient. The city's usual sounds were muffled by the thick blanket of snow. Everything felt quieter, more peaceful. The crunch of footsteps, the distant hum of a tram, and the occasional laughter of children were the only reminders that life continued beneath the winter's hush. Experiencing the Russian winter firsthand, I realized it wasn't just about enduring hardship. There was a unique, powerful beauty in the cold, a sense of wonder and respect for both the city and its people. I was only beginning to understand what it meant to live here, but already I felt a deep appreciation for the resilience and quiet magic of Moscow in winter. Preparing for the Russian winter was like gearing up for an expedition. Layers were essential: thermal underwear, fleece jacket and pants, and a big waterproof coat with a fur-lined hood. Insulated boots, 2 pairs of socks, glove liners with mittens, a wool hat, scarf and face mask completed my armor. Dressing each morning took 15 minutes, but outside I was grateful for every layer. I felt like an astronaut, but I was warm, dry, and ready to explore. After a few days in Moscow, I boarded the Sapsan high-speed train to St. Petersburg. The train was sleek, modern, and comfortable, gliding through a landscape of endless white. Birch and pine forests, snow-laden villages, and smoking chimneys flashed by my window. The world outside seemed frozen in time, but inside the train it was warm and peaceful. I sipped hot tea in the dining car, watching the snowy countryside fly past. As we neared St. Petersburg, the landscape shifted. More towns, hints of the sea in the air. Arriving at the station felt like entering a different country. European architecture, a new energy. I had crossed a great distance, ready for the next chapter of my Russian adventure. Red Square in winter was a dream, huge, impressive, and magical under snow. The vast expanse of the square, usually bustling with people, felt transformed by the quiet hush of winter. Snowflakes drifted down, softening the sharp lines of the ancient stones, and blanketing everything in a gentle white. The air was crisp, and every breath seemed to sparkle with the cold, carrying the scent of pine from distant Christmas markets. It was as if time itself had slowed, allowing the beauty of the moment to linger. St. Basil's Cathedral looked like frosted candy, its colors bright against the white. The swirling domes, dusted with snow, seemed almost unreal, like a scene from a fairy tale. Icicles hung from the eaves, catching the pale winter sunlight and scattering it in tiny rainbows. The cathedral's vibrant reds, greens, and blues stood out even more vividly against the snowy backdrop, making it the centerpiece of a winter wonderland. The Kremlin walls were softened, the square alive with skaters and festive music. Laughter echoed as children played in the snow, and families glided across the ice rink, cheeks rosy from the cold. Strings of lights and holiday decorations added a cheerful glow, turning the historic heart of Moscow into a place of celebration and joy. The energy was infectious, and for a moment everyone seemed united by the simple pleasures of winter. At night, the gum department store glowed with thousands of lights reflecting on the snow and ice. The grand facade sparkled, drawing visitors inside to warm up with hot chocolate and admire the festive window displays. The entire square was bathed in a golden light, making the cold feel almost magical. It was a scene straight out of a holiday postcard, full of warmth and wonder despite the chill. I wandered, soaking in the history and beauty. Each step crunched in the fresh snow, and I felt connected to centuries of travelers who had crossed the same square. The cold was invigorating, and the sights around me, ancient walls, glowing lights, and the distant sound of bells, made every moment feel special. It was a place where past and present met, wrapped in the embrace of winter. In St. Petersburg, Palace Square and the Winter Palace were grand and striking, the snow making everything seem even larger. The vast open space was framed by the elegant facades of the palace, their pastel colors softened by a layer of snow. Horse-drawn sleighs glided across the square, and visitors paused to take in the breathtaking scene. The Winter Palace itself looked regal and serene, its windows glowing softly in the pale light. The Alexander Column stood like a giant icicle, and the frozen canals became highways for walkers and skiers. People bundled in scarves and hats made their way across the ice, turning the city into a playground. Statues and monuments were dusted with snow, adding to the sense of timelessness and wonder. The whole city seemed to embrace the winter, finding joy in the cold. The winter light in St. Petersburg was soft and romantic, a quiet, poetic contrast to Moscow's bright cold. Street lamps cast a gentle glow on the snow, and the city felt wrapped in a peaceful hush. Couples strolled arm in arm, their laughter muffled by the snow, while artists and photographers tried to capture the fleeting beauty of the season. It was a city made for winter dreams. Each city had its own winter magic. Moscow dazzled with its energy and color, while St. Petersburg enchanted with its elegance and quiet charm. Together they showed me the true wonder of a Russian winter, where history, beauty, and the spirit of the season come alive in the snow. My toughest moment came in St. Petersburg, searching for a small museum. My phone died in the cold, leaving me lost on a snowy side street, Cyrillic signs all around. Panic crept in as the sun set and my fingers grew numb. I tried asking for directions, but my Russian failed me. I stopped, breathed, and remembered to retrace my steps. Following my footprints, I finally spotted a familiar pharmacy and found my way back to Nevsky Prospect. The lesson: always carry a physical map and a backup battery. Travel is about solving problems and learning to rely on yourself. Russian food was perfect for the winter, hearty, warm, and delicious. My first real meal was borscht, deep red and steaming, with a dollop of sour cream melting in. Pelmeni dumplings filled with pork and beef were pure comfort after a cold day. Beef stroganoff in St. Petersburg was rich and tender, served over mashed potatoes. Hot tea was everywhere, a simple pleasure that warmed me up. Blini, thin pancakes, came with sweet or savory fillings, perfect from street kiosks. Each meal was fuel for exploring and a taste of Russian hospitality. The warmth of Russian people surprised me most. On the Moscow metro, a babushka helped me navigate with gestures and a kind smile. In St. Petersburg, a student in line for the Hermitage gave me tips and shared his favorite exhibits. These small acts of kindness broke down barriers and made me feel welcome. In the coldest places, it's the people who make you feel at home. Arriving in St. Petersburg felt like finishing a marathon. The journey from Moscow, the cold, and the new culture all led to this moment of triumph. Walking Nevsky Prospect, seeing the city's elegance, I felt accomplished and at home in my winter layers. Visiting the Hermitage, crossing frozen canals, and exploring Palace Square were pure joy. The absence of crowds made the city feel like a private performance for the brave. On my last day, I stood on a bridge over the frozen Neva, reflecting on all I'd learned about resilience, kindness, and my own adventurous spirit. The journey was more than a trip, it was a lesson in self-reliance and the beauty of embracing a challenge.